Hello everybody. Today we are going to review the movie Black Widow. Uh, I did see this, these headphones. Yeah, I'll definitely be buying new ones soon because, oh my god, but it seems like I have so many things that I would like to be buying now that I can actually go out and buy them physically. So I'm trying to get a few more things in before I actually buy a new set of headphones, just because I want to be able to review stuff that I want to be able to review stuff that I've been wanting to review for a while, and unfortunately, I just have to finish the collections. But I was able to find one piece today in the mall nearby where I live. So, in Belleville, Ontario, I was able to find the mall that I've been looking, or the mall. I was able to find in the mall the few series or few collections of One Piece that I've been looking for, and I accidentally bought a second copy of the fourth voyage from season 6. So I guess I have a backup copy now, unless somebody out there that I know watches One Piece and is collecting it too that isn't quite that far into the show's collection, and I can give it to them or sell it to them for a little bit of money. But anyhow, I guess that's kind of my little ramble before we get into the actual intro. So I did go see this movie twice. Once on my own, just to kind of take it all in, but I just wasn't ready to review it yet. I think I needed to go back and see this another time just to kind of put the pieces of the story together in my own head, which is good because I'm glad I did go back and watch this a second time just for that alone, because I was really confused as to when the actual timeline, or when, not when the actual timeline, but when this story itself was supposed to be, like what piece of the timeline this story actually was. And I don't know if I would consider this a origin story for Black Widow, or as we know her in this movie for most of it, Natasha Romanoff. And her sister was Yelena Belova, and her father, or at least the parents that they had in the beginning of the movie who were on this mission, I guess, Alexei and Melina. And so, obviously, we know that Natasha is played by Scarlett Johansson. Yelena Belova is played by Florence Pugh. I might be pronouncing that last name wrong. Alexei's played by David Harbour, and Melina is played by Rachel Weisz or Wise. I can't remember how to pronounce her name, but I believe she was the one that was in the Mummy series, actually, a long time ago, like in the late 90s, early 2000s. I think she was the one. Now I'm trying to find. Oh my god. Yep, she was. Okay. When was the second Mummy movie? Well, I guess 2001, and then the third one didn't even have her in it, right? Because she was, I don't know, she was doing her own thing, I guess, at that point in time, just didn't want to be back in the movie, so they had, I can't remember who the other woman was that was in that, but really not important. Also, it starts off with the four of them, these two kids playing, I guess, and then one of them scrapes her knee or whatever, and the mother comes out, and then when the father comes home, he says they have about an hour to get out of the States. So I guess their mission was to find this, and now I'm not really sure how they, like, coding, I guess, or something for what Romanov, the enemy in this movie, is going to be doing to these girls in order to basically completely control them. So they have, their mind still works, but they don't have any control over what they do. They just do what they're told, so it takes away their free will. He puts this chip into them too, which we find out a little later on. But so this is actually during the time of, I believe, just before Infinity War. So I am going to have to go back and watch all the other movies, and I will be doing that in chronological order. Or in order of timeline, I do believe, because I would like to actually watch them that way and then kind of do the reviews that way. So I think I'll do this one last just because it came out so late, and yeah, I know I think it just come. I think it's right before Infinity War was where it said it was in the timeline. So now that I know that, it makes a little more sense as to why the ending is the way it is. So anyhow, they're running from. They have to leave the States and go to. Now I'm not sure. They land in Cuba, but I'm assuming they spend a lot of their time in. I guess where was it that she ended up when it flips to years later? So you meet this Romanov character. Clearly, these two, Alexei and Melina, are Russian, and I guess they're all technically Russian because Romanov is a Russian name too, and so is Belova, I believe. Now I don't really know where they were taken. The Red Room, I guess, which we find out later on why it was such a hard place to find, and why Romanov has stayed off the radar for so long. So then we skip to 21 years later. Clearly, Natasha has been back in the States because she's now an Avenger. So she's on the run again. So is Captain America because they're trying to bring all of the Avengers in for, I guess, questioning and to arrest them because I can't remember what movie it was where they went against the orders of the government and just clearly they have crimes against them too that they just never think about when they're, fighting the bad guys. They've done a lot of bad things themselves, and I don't think it's ever really touched on in that many other movies that about all the other like innocent lives that you just don't even think about when you're watching it. When they're just going through buildings and buildings are falling over, and clearly nobody got all those buildings empty in enough time for people not to perish along. Even though they're saving the Earth, obviously there are casualties in that. And I think another movie that really touched on it well was Batman versus Superman. I know that's from the DC universe, but I just wanted to kind of throw that in there to give my comparison. So, she's not even in the location that they think they're going to catch her in. She's already on this boat, and I wish I could remember where she was going. I think it might have been Norway, actually, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken on that. There was a lot of different locations in this, but I know that when her sister sends her these vials, because she's actually come to, it's this weird like spray stuff that just, I guess, I don't really know what it kicks out of you, or whether it just disables the, I guess, the brain functionality or brainwave pattern or whatever. It releases Romanov's control of you anyway. And so then she finds out that she's killed the widow that trained her. And this is Yelena I'm talking about. So then she cuts the sensor out of herself, sends the rest of the vials to Natasha. She's in Budapest, so now Natasha has to go to Budapest, and that was the first interaction we had with the character Taskmaster. Taskmaster, oh my god. So we have an interaction with this villain who we don't even know who is under the mask or if they're even human or not. But it seems basically robotic, and this Taskmaster person can mimic, I don't know why that's so hard for me to say, can mimic the movement of all of the Avengers. So you kind of see in a very opening scene where the Taskmaster is just sitting in the chair. God, that's like a tongue twister for me for whatever reason. And he's just watching all this video on Hawkeye and a couple of the other Avengers, like shooting the arrows and stuff. So whatever this Taskmaster sees goes into the, I guess, archive, and he or she is just able to mimic that. So that was kind of cool, a cool concept when Natasha runs into him or her for the first time, and she's like, oh my god, this thing can just mimic every movement. It can see when I'm coming, but it wasn't here to hurt her. It was just there for the vials. She was just kind of collateral damage, I guess. So eventually it just kicks her off the bridge, but she was able to get the vials out of the, I don't know, little briefcase or suitcase or whatever they were in. So then she pulls a picture out of her and her sister together, and she goes, "Oh crap!" So she goes to Budapest to meet her sister. They get into a huge fight because they don't really know if they can trust one another. Because I guess she doesn't know whether her sister is actually herself or not. And then all of a sudden, all the other Black Widows come into the room, and they have to fight them off. And it shows Romanov's obviously still alive because he disables one of the, or terminates one of the girls that's working for him. And I don't know what exactly happened to her, whether she has like a chip in her brain or whether the thing just shocked her face to like fry her brain or what happened there exactly. But it wasn't good. He clearly has no concern for human life. He doesn't care. These girls that he trains from a young age to become killers, obviously he just considers them a number because he knows that he can just get more kids or more young girls in to train them again to become assassins as adults or teens or however young they are when he finally puts them into the field. So now that Natasha and Yelena are, or Yelena. Yelena, I think I was saying Yelena before. I don't know. One of the two. So now that Natasha and Yelena are reconnected, I think they run into the Taskmaster again. Yes, they do. They do run into him again, and I can't. And they almost die in that scenario. I would say they were probably closer than the first time because he does pull out the bow and arrow, and he has the shield. Now, it is kind of weird that the Taskmaster is able to throw the shield, but it doesn't come back to him. I found that kind of like a flaw in the suit design, because you would think when Captain America's shield can come back to him, why wouldn't they have like magnetized the suit so that the shield comes back to the Taskmaster, right? That was the only design flaw I thought. I was just like, that's just a little weird. Why wouldn't the shield come back to him so he can throw it over and over and over and over and over again? It would just make sense. But anyhow, still a very cool concept for a villain for sure. So then they finally get away from the Taskmaster by throwing him or her off his course, or her course, whatever. And then this was probably the first comedy scene, because the younger sister says to Natasha, she goes, "Why do you always do that pose when you land or something? You know, the one where you stretch your one leg out and put your hand down and do the little hair flip." She said it's like you're always wanting somebody to pay attention to you instead of just, being known as a trained killer. And Natasha said while she was doing all the posing, she was trying to, make up for all the bad things she'd done, I guess, and be known more as just a trained killer. And then her sister says, well, you're fooling yourself then, because you're still just a trained killer. And she said, at least I'm not the one on magazines that everybody idolizes, which was, that would sting for sure. But Natasha kind of goes through the entire movie too, and she is very nice to the rest of them, saying that they weren't really a real family, even though, obviously for Yelena, it was real, because that was the only really true parents she ever had, even though it was for a very short time, because she was super young when they had to leave, right? So, was it 21 years later or 31 years later? No, it was 21 years later, yeah. And I think the original date at the beginning of the movie was 1985, so 21 years later, that would be 2005. 2006? Really? Was that when the first Avengers came out? Has it been that long? Oh my God. Um, I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? As to when the actual timing of everything was supposed to be, but hey. Uh, Anyhow, or what year it happened in. Now where was I? Yes, right. So that's when they decide to go after Romanov because now they're connected again and Yelena has nowhere to go. And I was just saying about how rude Natasha was about the whole situation. They do have to go back and break Alexei out of prison because they need him. They think they need him in order to get to the Red Room because they think that he knows where the location of it is. He doesn't. So then they have to go and find Melina, and she is still currently working for Romanov and the Red Room, which is crazy. But I guess she was truly passionate about what she was doing, and that's when you find out about the whole like genetic thing and how they are able to control the widows. So yeah, and then obviously Yelena gets mad at that because she said all of those people that you tested on, because I guess Melina has nothing to do with that part of it. She's just kind of like the designer. She doesn't have any control of who Romanov uses it on. That's not her department. But obviously it was used on Yelena, so Melina feels bad for that. And this was probably the biggest part of the movie, was when you think that Melina has betrayed them all, and Alexei is back in his Red Guardian suit at this point. It turns out that she didn't. That Natasha and her had just switched spots. So, and yeah, they had just switched spots. So they do end up making it to the Red Room, which was in the sky, literally, like in the clouds. Basically, wasn't floating, but it was like stayed in air, kind of like a helicopter can do, where it just like can hover for a long amount of time. So yeah, it was held up by these huge propellers. Kind of a cool concept. It was like a floating island, basically, in the sky, or floating lab, I guess, because that's where all the Black Widows were, right? So the way he stops the Widows from being able to attack him is this pheromonal block. So I guess when the Widows smell his scent, they don't have the ability to attack him. So as long as they can smell him, they can't hurt him, which I thought was kind of weird. It seems like a weird way to keep yourself defended, because if somebody had no sense of smell, there'd be no way to actually truly control them, I guess, other than when you know, did the whole system that Melina was working on, where she could control all your functions. And she shows that on the pig when she stops it from breathing, which is crazy and weird that you could think to even try that on people. But I guess some science is unnecessary, but some people find it necessary. I would say that's a little over the top and probably won't be happening for hopefully years, if that even is a possibility. If we even get that advanced, I hope nobody uses it for that kind of thing. But we know people like power, and that's clearly evident in this movie. They do have this plan to, I guess, bring in Romanov. Obviously, it's different from Yelena's and Natasha's plan, which is to kill him. which they are successful in when Melina Melina brings down the entire Red Room. It's just, that whole scene is comical because it goes from Alexei pouring his heart out, thinking that he's pouring it out to Natasha. It ends up being Melina, and then I think the funniest thing actually was Yelena doing the pose coming out of the ductwork, and she gets up and she goes, "Oh, that was disgusting." That was probably the funniest line in the movie, I would say. Obviously, Marvel does have a way of making things serious, but also they've definitely gone more to the comical side, I would say, in the last few films. Probably because they have been a little bit darker, so it is nice to have that little bit of humor in there. Because originally Natasha thought Romanov was dead, and in order to kill him, she needed to make sure that he was in the building when she was originally attempting to assassinate him. So, unfortunately, his daughter was the collateral damage in that one, and you think she's dead for sure. Turns out that the actual Taskmaster character, that can mimic all of the movements of the Avengers and anybody it sees, it's like fighting a mirror image of yourself, is how they described it. Turns out that is actually Antonia, Romanov's daughter. And I guess she didn't die. Obviously, Romanov didn't die because he was able to create. Now, I'm not really sure what else was left of his daughter, but he did have to put a chip in the back of her neck. So she's basically almost like 100% robotic for the most part. And she was played by Olga Krylenko, I want to say. I think that's right. Where was I? There. Oh yes. So you find out that that's his daughter, and then the only way for Natasha to hurt Romanov is to sever the nerve in her nose that allows her to smell. So she is able to do that. She thinks Romanov's going to be able to do it for her, but he wasn't able to break her nose. She does it herself. She gets the locations of all the widows. The Red Room starts to collapse at this point. They're all trying to get off of it. Yelena is able to destroy the plane or aircraft, whatever carrier that Romanov is in. It blows up. He's dead now. Natasha lets out the Taskmaster from the cell because now she knows it's Romanov's daughter, right? So she tries to catch Yelena, gives her the parachute, throws her away. There's this little battle between her and the Taskmaster at the very end of the movie, and then she is able to give the serum to Antonia and clear her brain of the control too, as well as all the other widows that were in the Red Room. That was probably one of the more epic fight scenes where Natasha's fighting all the other Black Widows, and it looks like she might not make it out of that scene because they were really. She started off well, but there was like probably 13 or 14 of them, and I'm sorry, but even a trained person against that many trained people probably isn't going to win that fight unless you're the Hulk. So, so yeah, and it kind of shows the vulnerability, I guess, of Natasha because she's the only one who's actually human, and her sister did make that joke earlier about, I bet you the god from space doesn't need to take ibuprofen after every fight. So kind of a jab at her, right? Because she doesn't have any actual superpowers. She's just a really well-trained human being who knows how to defend herself, but she's not invincible like the rest of them. So it's kind of funny. I guess Hawkeye would be another one, because he doesn't actually have any real superpowers either, does he? So I guess she's not the only one. But yeah, I guess that's right. But the rest of them, on the other hand, can't be killed. So anyhow, yeah, that was one of the more epic fight scenes, and Yelena is able to get the serum to them as well. So now at the end of the movie, they go their separate ways. Um, Obviously, Yelena has the locations of all of the widows now. Scarlet goes. I guess Scarlet kind of gets caught. I'm not really sure what happens to her after that. Uh, I can't remember how she escapes from that situation. But anyhow, at the end, her friend Mason, who has been there throughout the entire movie, helping her out along the way with her hiding and obviously anything else she needs, gets her the Avengers jet at the very end. And so she's going to break her friends out of jail now. And then we go to the end credit scene where Yelena is coming up to Natasha's grave. So I believe this must have been. So I remember the scene between Hawkeye and Natasha in that movie, and I believe it's Natasha that stays in the Infinity Stone world, or chooses to die in that world. So I believe I'm correct on this, but I don't think any of them are actually dead. I believe they're just trapped in the stones. So just like Gamora, who's trapped in one of the stones, which I'm interested to see Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So this woman, who I can't remember her name at the end, hands Yelena this iPad picture of Hawkeye, and she says, "That's your next target." So I'm thinking the next movie will be probably a standalone Hawkeye story with Yelena trying to kill him for most of the movie, and I'm not really sure where that story will go. That's kind of what I'm thinking anyway. It'll be, who knows, maybe they'll tie it into another movie, but I'm thinking that's how that is going to play out. And then obviously, or maybe it'll be in maybe that'll be in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. That could be another possibility as to where that story might take place. And I believe that, is it Jeremy Renner that plays Hawkeye? I think he said he's done after the next movie that he's going to be in. So I'm not really sure how they're going to end his story, but it will be interesting to kind of put this whole phase 4 once we see where the rest of the stories are going to be. So obviously we know that that is where that ends off, and I think I've pretty much covered everything I could talk about. I don't think there were no flaws in this movie. No, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to say. I will say this though. I don't think this movie, despite Black Widow being one of the, higher valued characters in the movie, obviously, I don't think this movie would have been nearly as good if she didn't have the sister in the movie. After watching this twice, I gotta say, if it wasn't for the sister being there, this movie wouldn't have been nearly as good. Because she made up quite a few of the action scenes, actually. Probably even more than Natasha did. So, yeah, I would say that if it wasn't for her, this movie would have been a hell of a lot shorter, that's for sure, because Natasha wouldn't have been searching as long for either two of them. She probably would have just tried to go on and take Romanov on by herself. So, yeah, I would say there wouldn't have even been a movie if that's how it had have happened. She would have just tried to go break everybody out of jail right away, right? And then just taken the Avengers to beat Romanov, and that would have been the end of it. But yeah, so without the sister, I would say that this story would have been, yeah, it just wouldn't have been as exciting without her. She made the movie, as far as I'm concerned. after watching it twice. I have to say that. Just, she was, even though I know it's supposed to be Black Widow was like the main character in the movie, she kind of was the star of the movie, the sister. I have to say that. That's just how I feel. But I still have to give this movie a 10 out of 10. It was just an awesome movie all around, no matter who I think was the best in the movie. Doesn't really matter because obviously my opinion is going to be different from yours. So I think this will be the last video I do for August. At least I'm going to try. I don't know. We'll see how August goes. I might have to push some stuff back and move some stuff around again, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping to do Monster Month in September, but if we have a big enough hero thing going, we might just push Hero Month and do like a Hero Month 2.0 in September, but we'll see. We'll have to see how that goes, because I know I have a lot of stuff that I want to get. But October will definitely be horror movie month regardless. So, I mean, if I have to move some stuff around, that's what I'll do, because I want to get this content out in the order I want to get it out. But that's it for now. 10 out of 10 of this movie. So as always, because it's been 30 minutes, I'm surprised I was able to talk about that this long, but I guess seeing it twice kind of gives me more to go on. So as always, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Comment down below what your thoughts on this film if you've seen it. It's still very fresh, so some people might not have, but it is on Disney Plus to watch for I think almost like $40, and that's why I was like, oh my god, why would I spend $40 on this movie when I can go see it for $12 and get popcorn for like $20, and there's my 40 right there, right? Basically. So. The only thing that I'm sad about is that, because I'm a huge collector of things, and I was actually shocked they had no collector's cups for the Black Widow movie. Kind of surprising, or at least I didn't see them advertised. They had Space Jam, and they had Fast and Furious, but nothing collector-wise for Black Widow that I saw anyway, at least in the cup area. I don't know about pop figures or anything. I'll have to take a look at the theater, I guess, because I'm going to be back a couple more times this weekend. So yeah. Anyhow, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.